Warning: the following program contains content that is intended for mature audiences and may be uncomfortable and triggering. Listener's discretion is advised.
That's how you know it's gonna be good.
Hello and welcome to the Killer Quarterfinals, sponsored by Raving Lunatic Media. Today's match will be OJ the Juice Simpson versus Jeffrey the People Nommer Dahmer.
This is a match for the ages, Matt. Dahmer versus Simpson. Nommer versus Juice. Goliath versus David.
Agreed, Shane. Let's take a look as the match starts.
Ooh, we start out with a Dahmer creep out. Classic move.
Oof! But OJ hits him with a football tackle.
This isn't looking too good for Dahmer. He's in a position for OJ's finisher.
Oh my goodness, oh my goodness. He hits it! He hits it! He gets his finisher off. He calls it the You Must Quit.
Wow! Just wow! No one saw this coming. We'll keep you updated as the match continues after this commercial break.
Aloha, greetings, and salutations, fellow chasers, and welcome back to the return of Cold Case Chase. Along with me on this ride, as always, the lovely man of every hour, Shane. Say hi, Shane.
Hello, I am lovely. Thank you for pointing that out and noticing. I was hoping someone would finally pick that up.
I always try to. I was watching the live stream this week. You should go follow Tabletop Beard on live.
Because I did do that live.
And I was enthralled with what a piece of masculine meat you are. I was like, geez.
Yeah, that was our very first live stream. And I went back and looked and realized that the angle was sideways the whole time, so I also learned a little bit.
I was watching like this, but I was okay with it.
Yeah, no one in the chat said anything, and then I got to the end and was like, oh my god, that was sideways the whole time. Everyone's just too nice.
I did learn a cool... obviously. Yeah. I did learn a cool fun fact, though, that you and Layla told me, that you can put Tabletop Beard stuff in your hair.
Yeah, yep. Layla does that with her hair so she'll sometimes use the oil for... she'll mix it with her shampoo for an oil treatment in the shower, or she'll put it on her ends before she straightens her hairs.
That's actually really cool. Yeah. I put it in my hair, but I didn't really know what to do with it, so I kind of styled my hair a little bit with it, but I didn't put a lot, so I was like, oh, it kind of sticks, but my hair smelled amazing the entire day. Go buy Tabletop Beard products if you haven't figured it out by now. But last week, or the last episode, we covered something that's basically the opposite of Tabletop Beard, something super depressing, in Edgar Allan Poe. And this week, we're going to be covering something also the opposite of Tabletop Beard. We're going to be covering something stupid today. And by something stupid, I mean O.J. Simpson. Now, Shane, obviously, you kind of remember the OJ stuff happening, I assume?
I was around, but I wasn't aware at the time. I remember hearing about it in the background. It was kind of like the Clinton administration to me at the time, where I was aware something was happening, but I wasn't really paying attention as I was younger. Yeah. But, yeah.
See, stuff I didn't realize is... I think the funniest thing to come out of the O.J. Simpson stuff was two things. The first one is the Shrek not reaction, but the redo of the Ford Bronco chase, where Shrek is riding through on the white donkey, and it's the exact angle and everything. And then the second thing was a 60-minute that OJ did at a later date, and I think I've sent it to you before, but it's the one where OJ tells the lady, I have a surprise for you. And he shows up on the door and he's like, I will play that clip now so that people can understand, but
I think that's his idea of a joke.
After we finished filming, OJ said to me that he had a surprise for me, and I genuinely was surprised. I think it was his idea of a joke, and this is it.
I think it must be. It's such a funny clip. I love it so much. But like I said, we are talking about one of the most famous cases of the 20th century, the murders of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman, and the subsequent case and trial of Nicole's ex-husband, O.J. the Juice Simpson.
Is it Orenval? Is that his name? Orenval?
I don't even want to think about his real name because that makes him more human to me for some weird reason and not like this weird supervillain that I've made him out to be in my brain.
Orenthal.
It's just like
Orenthal James Simpson.
With a name like that, I'd be a murderer too. I shouldn't say that.
Well,
yeah, we're going there today.
With Matt because that saved us all.
Yeah, I guess we're lucky I got stuck with Matt.
Hello, everyone. It's me, your host, Orenthal Rukstar.
Orenthal. What a name. What a name. We're going to get a little bit uncomfortable today, I have a feeling, though, because there's a lot of serious bits to this case, and there's also a lot of kind of stupid parts to this case, a lot on behalf of Mr. Simpson himself. So bear that in mind as you listen to the details of this case. We already did the little warning at the beginning, so I mean, hey, if you got this far, I'm not too worried about you. But without further ado, let's talk about the case of O.J. Simpson and dive right in. Let's do it. So, for those listening who are unfamiliar with this case, let's start with a little background. O.J. Simpson was a famous football star who achieved legendary status as a Hall of Fame running back in the NFL. He also achieved success as a movie actor in films like The Towering Inferno and Naked Gun. O.J. had met Nicole Brown while still married to his first wife, Marguerite, and eventually, in 1985, the two were married. By that time, Simpson had retired permanently from the NFL. The marriage, which became an emotionally and physically tumultuous one, lasted 7 years until their divorce in 1992. At the time of Nicole and Ron's murder, Nicole and O.J., while divorced, were still living in Brentwood, albeit in separate residences. So, what happened? Let's get into the night in question. On June 13th, 1994, in Brentwood, California at 12:10 a.m., the bodies of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman were found outside of Nicole's Brentwood home, having been stabbed many times to death. Two neighbors, who were led to the scene by Nicole's dog, discovered the bodies sprawled on the sidewalk. Immediately, for the police, their top suspect in Nicole and Ronald's murders was Nicole's ex-husband, O.J. Because of this, an extensive timeline was made by detectives of the scene after going through the entirety of the crime. And for the purposes of this podcast, we too will go through the major parts of this timeline. So, let's start with it. Oh yeah, we're going deep in it. Something that I don't want to get lost, in this episode is the heroic dog. Like, what a good pooch. Like, go pet your dog, everybody. Love your dog. You know what? Hey, where are you? If you can't tell, I'm petting my dog right now.
My dog has 3 legs, and she still manages to climb our fence and get out. And roll in cow pies.
I forgot that she had 3 legs.
Yeah. She has 3 legs because she got out.
Yeah. That's the husky, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was. I know you somewhat. I sometimes remember the conversations that we had long into the night.
Yes.
Wow, I make us sound like a great couple. We need some fan art. The goal is to make Layla jealous. Which probably will be extremely hard.
Yeah, I was going to say, it'll take a lot.
On June 12th at 6:30 p.m., Nicole, her children, and her friends and family arrived for dinner at the restaurant Mezzaluna. This dinner took place only a few hours after a school recital with OJ and Nicole's daughter, Sydney, which both parents and their families attended. From 9 to 9:30 p.m., OJ Simpson and Brian Cato Kalin went to McDonald's for dinner. Later, at 9:37 p.m., Nicole's mother, Judy Brown, called Mezzaluna to tell them that she had left her glasses there. At 9:45, OJ and Kalin returned home from McDonald's, since Kalin, a working actor, was staying at his guest house at the time. From 9:48 to 9:50 p.m., Ronald Goldman, a friend of Nicole's and a waiter who worked at Mezzaluna's, left with Judy Brown's glasses in an envelope to take them to Nicole's house in Brentwood. At 10:15 p.m., Nicole's neighbor, while watching TV, heard a dog incessantly barking and yelping nonstop. It was posited that these barks were because the dog saw the murders. At 10:25 p.m., Simpson's limo driver, Alan Park, arrived at his house as Simpson was scheduled for an 11:45 p.m. flight from LA to Chicago. Around that time, Cato Kalin heard 3 loud thumps on the outside wall of his guest house. From 10:40 to 10:55, Park buzzed the intercom to Simpson's home repeatedly, but received no answer. Park then, just before 11 p.m., spotted a shadowy figure walking across the driveway. The figure was described as being 6 feet tall and weighing approximately 200 pounds. At 11 p.m., Park buzzed again, this time receiving an answer. Simpson had overslept and was just getting out of the shower. Later, at 11:45 p.m., Simpson departed on the red-eye to Chicago, and it was at 12:10 a.m. when the bodies were found. The police found several pieces of evidence at the crime scene, including a knit hat, a bloody footprint, and a blood-stained glove left behind by the suspected killer. Few things with this timeline. First thing, you're a rich and famous... We're going to pretend here for a second, Shane. Mm-hmm. You're a rich and famous man.
Okay.
You just watched your daughter's dance recital. I forget what kind of recital it was, but it's a recital. Where do you go to dinner?
McDonald's.
The cheapest restaurant out there. I remember hearing that and I was like, why is he going to McDonald's? But then I realized if I was as rich as OJ was, I would also probably still go to McDonald's and get some nuggets.
And your kid's still going to want a Happy Meal.
Yeah. And he just went there with like this grown man. It was like him and this other grown dude.
Okay.
It's like, hey, we're rich and famous and we're going to Mickey D's.
I want some nuggets and I want me a fillet of fish.
Shane, I don't know if you actually eat a lot of McDonald's, but if you do, what is your go-to nugget sauce?
I don't, but barbecue.
Ooh, interesting. I'm a sweet and sour type of guy.
I like barbecue for my McDouble, and I dip my McDouble into barbecue sauce.
That's like a meal now or whatever. It's like the sweetie meal or something like that. I don't remember.
We typically go to Burger King for 2 reasons. Whoa. Number 1 reason is it's always less busy than McDonald's. And the kids like the toys a lot more. Like the toy set a lot more. So.
Oh, yeah. I can imagine. McDonald's has gone way downhill since like 2012. 2012 actually wasn't the end of the world. It was just the end of McDonald's being good.
That's slander.
A little bit, yeah. I'm a Wendy's guy anyways.
Oh.
Yeah. You know about that place, right?
Yes. Yeah, I've only eaten there like once, but we have them over here. I'm more of a Taco Bell person myself.
Man. Wait, what do you have over there?
Wendy's.
Wendy's nuts gonna fit in your mouth. You end recording right there. Just stop it, Matt. I'm done with the show. I quit. Second thing. about this timeline. Did OJ genuinely think, oh, I have an 11 o'clock flight, or what was it? A flight at like 11:45 or whatever. I need to murder these people in between the hours of 9:45 to 11:45. It must have been like a huge spur of the moment thing.
Right.
Like it had to be, right? Like it couldn't have been like premeditated, which just adds to the how the heck did this guy not get caught? Like, I said we aren't going to be liked by a lot of people, Shane. Obviously, that first episode, we're not going to be liked by the mob. The second episode, we're not going to be liked by the emos. And this third episode, we're not being liked by O.J. Simpson.
Yeah.
Which I'm perfectly fine with the latter on that one. But
for the second episode,
this guy's an idiot.
I am the emos at heart. I was the emo generation.
Yeah. It's not a phase, Mom.
Yeah, it was. I was the eyeliner wearing and fingernail painting and hair in front of my eye. Emo. I'll have to send you a picture at some point.
Oh, please do.
Yeah, it's.
I never got to the point where I was like painting my fingernails, but I always really wanted an earring, and I always had like the hair down in front of my eyes too, which. Not going to have that for much longer.
Yeah, now I just draw Sharpie hair over my eye.
Do you have anything about this timeline that you think is just like strange or like...
Besides all of it?
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, no, it's weird. I mean... Like you said, the McDonald's part's weird, but I don't know. Just the whole thing reeks.
Also, how do you tell a person's weight by looking at them? Like,
I'm really bad at that.
Especially in the dark.
I have no like frame of reference for like weight.
I don't either.
And so like I'm terrible. I just try not to like guess because I know my weight, but I'm really short. And so when I like think of my weight for somebody who's like 6'3", I'm like, they're going to be real skinny.
Hey, come here. Come here. Stop it. Sit. Stop it. Who are you barking at? O.J. Simpson is not outside my door right now.
Or
Stop
is
it.
he?
If O.J.'s out there, I'll give you a treat. Shh. Or actually, speaking of, hey, do you want a treat? I'm going to give my dog a treat real quick.
All right.
Stop. We are keeping all of this in the episode. Just kidding. But what's weird about this for me is like, this is like, he can't even see this person. He's seeing a shadow.
Right.
And he's just like, yeah, that's 200 pounds. 200 pounds of shadow right there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that would have went so hard in the intro. Like, ladies and gentlemen, 200 pounds of shadow. OJ the Juice Simpson. But let's continue. Later, Simpson had landed in Chicago, and according to leading prosecutor Marcia Clark, Detective Ron Phillips phoned him to inform that his ex-wife was dead. And OJ's first response was, who killed her? Not, oh my goodness.
What happened?
What happened?
Was there an accident?
Who killed her?
Who done it?
Like, he knew that she was killed immediately. It wasn't like, oh my goodness, what happened?
Right.
Like, did they get in a car crash? Or like, it was who killed her?
How?
Well, obviously not the first blunder that OJ made that night, but probably the one that put the nail in the coffin is coming up pretty soon. Upon his return to Brentwood, Simpson was detained by the LAPD and questioned for 3 hours about his whereabouts on the night in question. Simpson was then later released. However, on June 17th, Simpson was charged with 2 counts of murder, but famously, he refused to surrender and was quickly declared a fugitive. afterwards leading the police on a low-speed car chase with his friend and fellow football player, Al Cowlings. Cowlings would later state that the reason he didn't pull over the Ford Bronco and stop was because Simpson was holding a gun to his own head, apparently in a suicidal state. Eventually, the chase ended up back at Simpson's Brentwood home, and Simpson surrendered at 8:51 p.m. Police found makeup adhesive, a fake mustache, a passport, and a gun inside Simpson's car. Okay, before I get to the depressing part, can we just acknowledge that this guy really carried a fake mustache with him?
I like it. Obviously, I mean, imagine someone like, I don't know, like Peyton Manning. If he had a fake mustache, would you know who he was?
No, because Peyton Manning is like a 6'2" white guy. O.J. Simpson is 300 pounds of pure muscle and giant.
He's 200 pounds of shadow.
On yeah, he's a 200-pound shadow. You think putting a mustache on that's going to change him that much? Oh, but I have to say this next depressing line. They also found a suicide note that he had written, thanking everyone in his life and professing his innocence. It said the following: "First, everyone understand. I had nothing to do with Nicole's murder. I loved her. Always have and always will. If we had a problem, it's because I loved her so much." Slightly depressing.
Yeah.
But this man also very clearly, and there's like no way around the fact that he murdered his ex-wife and also Ronald Goldman. So I mean, hey, let's keep listening to this dirtbag, I guess.
He's not a teenage, but he is a dirtbag.
Oh, I love that song so much.
He's not a teenage dirtbag, baby.
Acapella time. Also, I feel like I should say here, before we move on, just because O.J. Simpson obviously, I don't want to say was faking these feelings, but obviously he had felt some type of way. If you yourself are feeling some type of way listening to this podcast, if you are feeling suicidal, please reach out to somebody who has the proper authorities. Reach out to the suicide hotline. We should definitely put that in the episode somewhere, probably towards the end or even right here. But yeah, please seek help if you are feeling this way. What followed was a lengthy and widely publicized trial, which was described by some as a media circus. Some of the details of the trial will become relevant as we talk more about the suspects and the details of the case. Ultimately, O.J. Simpson famously and very controversially was found not guilty after less than 4 hours of deliberation by the jury. In court, the defense team, which included prominent civil rights lawyer Johnny Cochran, argued that race had played a major factor in the case. The defense also argued that white detectives assigned to the case had been working to make Simpson, who was a black man, appear guilty. Deputy District Attorney Christopher Darden, who was one of the prosecutors, once said during the trial in regards to the argument against Simpson, "It will do one thing. It will upset the black jurors. It will say, whose side are you on, the man or the brothers?" And I have never felt so white saying the brothers in my entire life. And I'm part Mexican, man. So essentially, basically, what that was saying was they turned this trial that was about a murder into something that was about a race war.
Yeah.
Which can have your own politics on something, but 2 people still died, and it was very clearly OJ who did it. And his lawyers unfortunately took advantage of that, and obviously they won the trial. This is depressing, man.
Yeah, it's rough.
Like, obviously, we were having our jovial fun earlier. We were just kidding around, but the more we read into this, man, the more depressed I get. Oh goodness, we're gonna have to do a fun case one of these days, and then like
there
who
a
left
such
this
thing?
lollipop here?
Is there a such
There has to
thing?
be, right? There is actually, kind of. Maybe there's one later this season that I could argue is a happy one. That being the Alcatraz escape.
Okay.
Where 4 guys escaped Alcatraz and nobody knows where they were. But yeah, arguably that one. But continuing. Later, many people would claim that it was only because the majority of the jury was black that Simpson was found not guilty. It was also not long after that infamous police brutality against a black man named Rodney King and the riots in LA followed. The riots happened in large part because the officers that had assaulted Rodney King were acquitted of all charges. So the general sentiment amongst the black community was distrust in the police system and feeling of victory when Simpson was acquitted of the charges. We'll talk a little bit more about that later on. In any event, those are the events that played out, although there is more to talk about when we talk about suspects. So, why don't we go ahead and get into them? Hey Shade, I'll give you a whole bunch of ruck bucks if you can guess the first top suspect.
Is it Ted Cruz?
400 ruck bucks to you. How did you do that? Just kidding.
Yeah.
It's OJ. Who could have seen that coming?
Orenball. Good old Orenball.
I'm never gonna get over that name. Wait, if his first name's Orenval, what does the J stand for?
James.
Orenval James. That is definitely a Civil War veteran.
I was gonna say like a knockoff of Orville Redenbacher. It's like an
the popcorn.
Mm-hmm.
That does sound delicious.
Maybe it's
right about
orange juice flavored popcorn.
That is the worst thing I've ever heard in my entire life. And I've heard about ravioli flavored Pop-Tarts.
Yeah. That's worse than the Get Hoffa Squad.
Get Hoffa Squad. Oh, I finally figured out the pun for that. I want the Get Hoffa Squad to get Hoffa me. I finally found the pun, but it was like 2 weeks too late. I was like, shoot! I was editing it, and I was like, do I just insert something in the middle of this episode? No, it rolls too well. I was like, I'll figure out how to eventually get it back into an episode. And it only took me this long.
Yeah. And I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for that dastardly Get Hoffa Squad.
Not the Hoffa Squad! Nah, let's talk about this freaking guy.
Boy,
At the time, as stated before, yeah, this guy. Look at this freaking douche. At the time, as stated before, Simpson and Nicole Brown had been going through a fracture in their marriage. Also, around the time of the murders, Nicole and Ron Goldman had allegedly grown progressively close as friends, which led many to think that they were becoming more than friends. Despite that, at the time, Ron Goldman said that that wasn't the case, and that they were just very good friends. But in terms of motive, it stands to reason that their relationship would have given Simpson a reason to want to kill them out of rage and jealousy. Going back to the timeline gathered by LAPD detectives, assuming that the murders took place around the time the dog was heard barking, which was at 10:15 p.m., that would feasibly give OJ just enough time to murder Ron and Nicole, clean himself up, and be back in his home by 11 p.m. before he had to be taken to the airport by his limo driver. So, timelines are adding up a little bit here. The blood found on the glove at the crime that matched his DNA, as well as matching both Ron and Nicole's. The glove also matched another glove found inside Simpson's estate, behind the guest house, and where Kato Kalin had heard the thumping noises. Both of these gloves were stained by the exact same blood.
Ooh.
At the estate, the police also found bloodstained socks. The bloodstains matching to Nicole's DNA. There was also a bloodstained on the driveway, and the bloody footprints found at the crime scene matched the size and sole of a pair of shoes that Simpson owned at the time. Despite this, the shoes were never found. Also, the knit hat found at the crime scene contains Simpson's hair, as found through fiber analysis by the FBI. The next day, after the murder, when Simpson was being questioned by police, he was found to have a cut on his finger. Also, Simpson had recently purchased a knife that matched the type that the coroners predicted the killer had used on the victims. But just like the shoes, the knife was never found. We're not done yet. I think we're about halfway through all the evidence against OJ.
You mean the innocent
Another
man?
major detail. Yeah, the innocent guy. Another major detail in this case concerns the history of OJ and Nicole's marriage. OJ had been a consistent perpetrator of spousal abuse, both mental and physical, in the past. This resulted in 9 police visits to the Simpson home, responding to phone calls by Nicole to report these domestic disturbance incidents. Incidentally, and rather disturbingly, transcripts and audio of Nicole's phone calls to the police can be found in many places on the internet. In 1989, Simpson was found guilty of spousal abuse and he pled no contest to these charges. In 2006, over a decade after the end of the trial, O.J. Simpson, in need of money, ended up writing a book called If I Didn't, which was a seemingly hypothetical account of the murders and how he would have gone about committing them.
Sorry to interject, but my thing is like...
No, please do.
You got off. Shut up. That's all I have to say about that. Shut up.
Yeah. Yeah, like, obviously, like, I wish this guy didn't get away with it, but at this point, he's just rubbing it in our faces. Just like, ha, I got away with it, and there's nothing.
I didn't kill her, but if I had killed her...
This is what I would do. This other guy, he wrote, if someone who paints houses, I wrote If I Didn't. So many good true crime books out there.
Yes. Yeah.
Gotta go give them a read. At first, obviously, this book was canceled quickly due to intense public outrage, but it was later published with all the profits and proceeds going to the Goldman family, namely Ron's father, Fred Goldman. As already stated, Simpson was found not guilty in court. We talked about how race could have played a major role in his acquittal, but in large part it was due to the evidence in the case was mishandled by the forensics team. And the defense team for Simpson drew much attention to this during the trial. More specifically, the evidence was not packaged or marked correctly and was left in a forensics van to overheat. They eventually suggested that the crime scene was contaminated as well. These technical mistakes by forensics led to a lot of doubt over the validity of the evidence and therefore Simpson's guilt. Oh. Just a few nerds, man. They ruined it for everybody.
I know.
On top of that, during the trial, the defense team had Simpson try on the gloves found at the crime scene, obviously for the jury to see. And guess what? They were just a bit too small. This led to one of the most famous lines that came out of the trial. I would argue one of the most famous cold case lines ever. If it doesn't fit, finish it off.
I don't remember. I just see him putting the glove on and holding it up for the jury.
You forgot?
I did.
If it doesn't fit, you must
acquit. All right.
There we go, Shay.
Yes. Yes, I just see him putting the glove on and holding his hand up and moving it back and forth and showing everybody.
Yeah, when he like stretched out his hand super long so that the glove wouldn't fit him. However, one thing that should be mentioned is that the prosecution team, including Marcia Clark, was against having Simpson try on the glove. Why? Because the glove had been frozen and unfrozen multiple times as a method of preservation, and it had also been covered in blood. But ultimately, Chris Darden, one of the prosecuting attorneys mentioned before, insisted on having Simpson try on the glove in court. This was considered a massive strategic blunder by the prosecution team in hindsight. Earlier, we also mentioned that it's been heavily suggested that race played a huge role in the case, and I'm not going to dwell on this all too much because obviously I can't talk about it all too much. I don't know the dichotomy of race in our economic society, but I'll just quickly touch on this point. Especially as put forth by the defense team. Even in terms of the jury itself, 8 of the jurors were black and several others were of mixed race, with only 1 white person on the jury. Because of this, the defense put forth the idea of law enforcement racism as a reason for Simpson being charged. But perhaps their biggest argument was centered on and against the LAPD detective Mark Furman. Mark Furman was the first detective to enter Simpson's Brentwood estate after the murders, which Furman did by jumping over the wall of the estate. Furman was considered a key witness by the prosecution team. According to Furman in his testimony, it was during this time, after he jumped the wall, that he discovered the matching bloody glove behind the guest house. However, the defense team, well into the trial, uncovered and found audio of Furman using racial slurs more than 40 times in one recorded sitting. Yeah. So, using this recording, the defense was able to suggest that Furman planted the glove and also perhaps the rest of the evidence, and essentially torpedoing the prosecution case. So, for a moment, let's just assume that OJ didn't do these murders. Okay. You know, before we do that, though, I'd like to say one thing about OJ. If it quacks like a duck, if it walks like a duck, if it murdered Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman like a duck, it's OJ Simpson. That's all I'm going to say. This guy is a dirtbag. Can we get a scumbag alert, please? Just for me.
Let me find a scumbag alert. Scumbag alert.
And oh goodness, that was the first of the we'll say the 3 theories that we have. The second one is an alternative suspect named Glenn Edward Rogers, who was a convicted serial killer. So this is bleeding over a little bit into case closed, because I believe Edward Rogers was caught at some point, obviously, if we know his name. So this particular theory was made popular by his brother, actually, Clay Rogers, who claimed that his brother confessed to the murders while he was on death row. So this was first presented in a 2012 documentary called My Brother, the Serial Killer. The documentary includes a candid interview with Clay Rogers, who maintains his certainty that his brother committed the murders. According to the documentary, Glenn Rogers would have had the means and opportunity to kill them, as he was working as a house painter in the Brentwood area when they were murdered.
Isn't that the title of the other
reportedly, book? Yeah, I heard you paint houses. Wait a second. Do you think that... No.
Please tell me that the third suspect is the dog, by the way. Just saying.
Pet your dogs, everyone.
The dog was barking like somebody else did it.
And we brought it back to being silly. I like
this. There is a certain amount of people who injure themselves pretty severely every year tripping over their pets, so...
That is true. I trip over Bucko literally all the time. And, like, my least favorite thing in the world is when I'm, like, not paying attention and I turn and I step on his foot and he goes, meow,
yeah.
meow, meow. Like, dude, no,
My favorite is when my black Labradoodle is laying in the middle of the dining room and I'm up at 3 a.m. to go get water or something and I just don't see him. He's like 95 pounds laying on the floor. Just a giant mass of darkness that I don't see and then typically step on and stumble
200
over.
pounds of shadow? 200 pounds of shadow?
Anyway.
And then you just trip and fall. And then you get all soaking wet.
Mm-hmm. Usually I just curse and mutter and then tell him to get the heck out of the way.
And then Atlas comes out and he's like... Daddy, what does mean? Nothing. Now go back to bed. So, let's continue with this weird house painter serial killer guy, because this isn't even the best thing.
I heard he paints houses,
So Glenn had mentioned Nicole's name to family members before she was killed. It had also been reported by ABC News that Rogers told his siblings that he met Nicole Brown and noted that she was very wealthy, implying an interest in her money. Allegedly, he also mentioned that he planned to take her down on at least one occasion. Rogers, while in jail, also told a criminal profiler, Anthony Maioli, that he was told by Simpson to steal back an expensive pair of earrings from Nicole that Simpson allegedly told Rogers, and I quote, "You may have to kill the bitch." No, I wasn't calling you.
It was figurative. I didn't actually mean it.
Yeah. In addition, Rogers had provided an apparently detailed account of the murder to Maioli. According to the documentary, Rogers even drew a picture of the knife he claimed to have used, which matched the forensic description of the blade. So, Rogers' claim would still implicate Simpson in the murder, and perhaps he would have been found guilty if this had been taken to court earlier. However, Rogers may have been serving a sentence in jail at the time of the murders, so the validity of this and his brother's claims are questionable. And many people, including Goldman's father, Fred, do not believe the claims made by the documentary, despite the film drawing a lot of attention to this theory. Dan Abrams, an ABC News legal analyst, said this about it. "The filmmaker has created a compelling case here. The problem is, it doesn't deal with the enormous amount of evidence pointing at O.J. Simpson."
Orenball.
So, I said we had 3 theories today.
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously, I think O.J. is the most compelling. I think that's with, like, a bullet. Like, I almost told John... we were having a conversation of how many suspects are we putting? Are we just putting OJ in this? I said no, we shouldn't just put OJ in it. We should let the people think for themselves. So I told him, I said, well, I know of this other theory that got pretty popular for a little bit. Not too long ago, actually. I think it was like around 2012, I want to say, it got popular, which I guess is now 11 years ago. So yeah, a little bit older than I thought. But the last theory that we're going to talk about is that Jason Simpson, OJ's son, was the murderer. So Jason Simpson, who is OJ's second-born son from OJ's previous marriage before Nicole, is also a minor suspect in the case. The theory that Jason was responsible for Ronald and Nicole's murders was made by a private investigator named William Deere in his 2012 book, O.J. is Innocent and I Can Prove It, The Shocking Truth About the Murders of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman. And that is a mouthful. too many words for the title of a book. It's like if I titled this, That Time Me and Shane Got Really Funny and Also Really Depressed while talking about O.J. Simpson, and also there's a dog in this episode.
Yes. Let's stick to naming books things like It.
Or If I Did It. Or I Heard You Paint Houses. I had to get one more jab in. I'll probably get like several more.
Yeah, there's plenty of time left.
Oh, yeah.
There's always time.
There's always time to roast O.J. Simpson. One thing that should be mentioned before getting into this theory is that many have dismissed Deer's theory as entirely circumstantial. Despite this, it's still noteworthy and worth talking about. So let's get into some of the highlights of this theory. So around the time of the murders, Jason was apparently on probation because he had attacked his former boss with a knife. According to Bill Deer in his book, Jason had also attacked 2 of his ex-girlfriends on separate occasions. One of his ex-girlfriends, named Dee, had claimed, I guess her name was just Dee, not Dee. Named Dee had claimed, when interviewed by Deer, that Jason almost broke her back after throwing her into a bathroom and cut off her hair with a knife. This would have given Jason 2 reported assault counts with a knife, as apparently he had assaulted another ex-girlfriend, Jennifer Green, with a knife too. Also, apparently, Deer obtained medical records of Jason to gather this information, I guess. Although Deer perhaps did this by illegal means, specifically dressing up as a doctor for 2 weeks in Cedars-Sinai Hospital, where Jason Simpson had been a patient. So, take that with a grain of salt, I guess. Could you imagine faking being a doctor for 2 weeks? What do you
Not
do?
a doctor.
What happens if, like, doctor, we have some patient that needs this. Oh, okay. I guess so. Sure.
Let me get the heart paddles.
Yes.
Give me those chest
give
chopper
him
things that George
ibuprofen.
Clooney uses.
Yeah. Also, in Deer's book, it says that Jason had been diagnosed with IRD, which is short for intermittent rage disorder. And around the time of the murders, Jason had apparently stopped taking his medication, which was an antipsychotic. Jason had reportedly told doctors that he was going to rage after hearing the voices of people who didn't exist.
Okay.
That is scary.
That is a little scary, yeah.
Jason, however, does have an alibi, saying that he was working at a restaurant during the night of the murders. However, Deer in his book disputes this alibi as being rather flimsy. Why, you might ask? Because apparently Jason's time card for clocking out for the night was allegedly handwritten. This could suggest that this time card was forged after the murders. This time card looks shadier when one considers that the restaurant's electronic one was completely functional on the night in question. Also, reportedly, Deer obtained photographs of Jason wearing a knitted hat similar to the hat found at the crime scene. And these photos were supposedly taken before the murders took place. Deer also posits that O.J. Simpson was present at the crime scene in order to protect his son from prosecution, making Simpson still associated with the crime. This could also explain Simpson's strange, inexplicable behavior after the murders, especially his seemingly suicidal behavior during the Bronco chase. But again, as many have dismissed Deer's theory as circumstantial, again, we cannot be sure about this one either. But alas, Jason is perhaps the most interesting suspect out of the OJ case, obviously besides OJ himself.
Right.
So, it's still something to think about too. I mean, hey, if OJ really didn't do it. Now, all of this aside, let's do a little house cleaning while talking about the case. Ultimately, a year after Simpson was acquitted in court, a year later, there was a civil trial in which O.J. Simpson lost, being found responsible for the death of Nicole and Ron, and their families were awarded $33.5 million in damages. In regards to the victims, Nicole was buried in Ascension Cemetery in Lakes Forest, California, and Ronald Goldman was buried in Pierce Brothers Valley Oaks Memorial Park in Westlake Village, California. Unrelated to this case, though, a decade later, in September 16, 2007, O.J. Simpson was connected to a robbery in Las Vegas and was found guilty on 12 counts.
I do remember
including
that.
Kidnapping and armed robbery.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
I do remember that. Because
that was...
he was stealing his own memorabilia, but wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He did this, let's see, 11 days before my 7th birthday.
Okay.
So I was not paying attention to the news of that.
I did look it up, and I was 5 or 6 when this happened. When he was going through trial and stuff, so... Yeah, it's...
You know what? We're not so different. Unrelated to this case, decade later in 2007, OJ was connected to a robbery in Las Vegas and was found guilty on 12 counts, including kidnapping and armed robbery. He was sentenced to 33 years in prison, but was released on October 1st, 2017, after a parole hearing. He had served almost 9 years in prison. Incidentally, CNN had run separate polls over the years to measure the percentage of Americans who believe that Simpson's murder of Nicole and Ron was obviously him. And in 1994, 66% of people thought it was him. And in 2014, that poll jumped to 83% of people thought it was him. Whatever you may or may not believe, there are certainly many implications just of OJ. It's OJ, guys. I don't know how many more times I can say it. This is not a cold case. But it is at the same time. But for now, I guess this case will have to remain a cold one. I hope the families of Nicole Brown and Ronald Goldman eventually get the closure of OJ's egg. Yeah, I did it. But kind of slightly related, that Vegas robbery that OJ got caught up with later. Maybe a possibility of a case closed episode on that.
Yeah.
You think?
Yeah.
We should do that. Just like guys, OJ killed somebody and then tried to steal his own memorabilia. Like, oh. But yeah, so that's it for today and the case of Nicole Brown and Ronald Goldman.
Yeah.
So Shane, who do you think did it?
I find the Jason motive and pretty interesting. There's a lot there, but ultimately I think that OJ did it. I mean, old Orenthal James.
Yeah.
I think that, he did it and then kind of cashed in on it when he wrote his book.
Yeah.
What about you?
I would love to see where the funds for that book actually went, because I don't 100% believe that all of the funds went to the Ronald Goldman Fund.
Yeah.
Which is a very sad fact.
Yeah.
Like I said before, if it walks and quacks and looks like a duck, it's OJ.
Well, I mean, until 2017 or 2018, the NFL was a quote-unquote non-profit organization. So, I mean, saying something and doing something are completely different things.
Exactly. So, in my opinion as well, OJ. But this was a depressing episode. Yeah. Just slightly. It got a little silly, but it was mostly just kind of silly.
And, I don't really want to drink orange juice right now.
I don't either. It reminded me of the John Benet Ramsey episode when I had to do that one, and I got really depressed after that one. I was like, oh, this little girl.
Yeah, that was a rough one. But now I'm just
like, oh, these two poor people. Yeah. But y'all know it's something that's not depressing? All the other cool stuff on Raving Lunatic.
Agreed.
We have stuff like Zodiac Task Force, which is just coming out with another new episode. We have, let's see, Sci-Fi Malady, which is doing some awesome stuff as well. Go check them out. Go check out The Janitor, upcoming this October with its first episode. Should have a couple trailers out by now as well. And don't forget to go check out Why You Should, as well as go check out the Zodiac, or the Raving Lunatic Media YouTube channel. Also, I don't know, by this time, obviously, there will be a marathon up of some old Cold Case Chase episodes that I just kind of put together as a fun little thing. And I might do another big one with this season, because I think that would be super fun. So, we're going to do that.
I like it. Yeah. That sounds like a good time.
Yeah, it's like 3 hours of murder mystery podcast that you can just sit down and listen to. With also, it'll have a teaser of that first episode. But I mean, we're already on episode 3, so by now you've definitely heard it.
Yeah,
so.
Of course. I mean,
right?
Pshaw.
Pshaw. I finished all 3 hours in 10 minutes. I was listening on times 50 speed.
While also reading and watching TV.
Yeah, I'm just that impressive. But with that all said and done, I would like to thank everybody who subscribes to the podcast. I would like to thank everybody who supports us on GoFundMe, Patreon, and all of the above. Thank you to everybody there, and thank you everybody who listens.
Much appreciated.
And we'll see you. Shane. We'll see you next time on Cold Case.
Cheers.
Shane, you want to end us off with a little knowledge bomb?
All right. How about...
Best knowledge bomb I've heard.
Yes.
That's the best one. That's the best one.
Raving Lunatic.